In my last video, we talked about a massive update for Marvel's Spider-Man 3 from the creative director of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 himself, Brian Intihar. We also got some thoughts from the actor that plays Peter Parker, Yuri Lowenthal, on his thoughts and his hopes and dreams of who may appear in Marvel's Spider-Man 3. But in this video, we're going to be going heavy into the spoilers. We're going to be discussing what the end of Spider-Man 2 revealed, the story, the villains, the direction that Marvel's Spider-Man 3 will be taking. And we're going to start off by the quote from Brian Intihar himself. So from the Skill Up podcast with Brian Intihar, which I'll leave in the pinned comment section below too, Skill Up asked Brian Intihar on what the potential could be for a Marvel Spider-Man 3, which Brian Intihar replied, if Spider-Man 1 was like our Iron Man and Spider-Man 2 was like our Civil War, where logically do we go from there? All he could say that it would be pretty epic. So there's definitely plans for Marvel Spider-Man 3, and we know this by the ending of Marvel Spider-Man 2. They set up so many things, even in the side mission, they set up so many things that will lead into a potential Miles Morales Part 2 spin-off, DLC, and a Marvel Spider-Man 3. So let's quickly round up the ending of Marvel Spider-Man 2. We know that Peter Parker is semi-retired, and Miles Morales will be New York City's main Spider-Man. Peter Parker is still in control of the Anti-Venom suit. Harry Osborn is not dead but is in critical condition. Norman Osborn blames Spider-Man for the critical condition of Harry Osborn, and he also visits Doc Ock in the raft and tries to get the identity of Peter Parker, but Doc Ock doesn't give it away, but he does say that he is writing the final chapter. We also get the introduction of Cindy Moon, although we don't see her face. And although they wiped away a lot of the symbiote, not all of the symbiote is gone. So let's talk about the villains we will be seeing in Marvel Spider-Man 3. I think it's pretty much confirmed that the Green Goblin will be making his way as the main villain of Marvel Spider-Man 3. At the end of Marvel Spider-Man 2, Norman Osborn wanted to inject Harry Osborn with the G serum, which is their version of the Goblin serum. But what I think this will lead to is Norman testing it out on himself first, becoming the main villain of the series. Doc Ock is also teased to make his return, and I think he will be a secondary villain to Green Goblin, just how Kraven and Venom kind of were in this game. Also, Harry Osborn himself. He could potentially become a version of Green Goblin, although I don't see it happening because he was the main villain of this game and he was the main version of Venom. But a major thing they set up in this game was when you had the symbiote for a long time, as part of it still remains within you. So I think it's a guarantee that they'll try to bring that back in some form. Maybe Harry could either become a new Goblin, anti-agent Venom, maybe we'll get a Venom return. But there's so many directions they can take Harry Osborn's story. Then one of the major jaw-dropping moments was the leader of the Flame turned out to be Cletus Cassidy, Carnage himself. So I think this is already one symbiote villain that is confirmed for Marvel Spider-Man 3, and I think it will be a kind of side quest this time around too, just like how the Flame side quest was. I think Carnage would also be a major side quest for this game. And if they do find a new Venom with a Venom spin-off game being Eddie Brock, I'd think they'd try to make Venom into an anti-hero, because we also got an amazing villain version of Venom here. So if we've got the anti-hero version of Venom come back into Marvel Spider-Man 3, I can definitely see a Venom vs Carnage fight where you play as the Venom. But I think Carnage would definitely have a very interesting role in the next game. Let me know, do you think Carnage will be a main villain or a side villain for Marvel Spider-Man 3? Then we've got the Chameleon, Kraven's half brother. He could potentially be a side villain too. If not, I can see him being the main villain of a DLC for Marvel Spider-Man 2. Anti-Venom has some real potential also for the next game. Now Peter Parker still has control of Anti-Venom, he still has it in his system, and I think those abilities will carry over to Marvel Spider-Man 3, and I also believe they will upgrade those abilities too to give him some new moves. But we could potentially see a Anti-Venom storyline play out in the next Spider-Man game. And I think one of the Surge abilities, where you press R3 and L3 on the gamepad and Peter Miles just has this crazy attack, I think for the next game we could see Anti-Venom becoming Peter Parker's Surge ability. And they could play around with that in the story. Maybe Anti-Venom isn't as bad as Venom. And it would also be cool to see Anti-Venom kind of act as Venom does in the Tom Hardy movies, where it's kind of like a duo. I think that would be a very cool and interesting twist for Marvel Spider-Man 3. I think Anti-Venom is still one to keep in our heads, and I also think maybe Anti-Venom could be the reason Harry Osborn is cured in the next game, and Peter can access the symbiote within Harry and transform that little bit of symbiote into Anti-Venom, and that could become the revival of Harry Osborn and making him into Agent Anti-Venom. Let's move on to some of the new heroes we could be seeing in Marvel's Spider-Man 3. And we know this game is going to be on an epic proportion. It's been compared to the likes of Infinity War Endgame from Brian Intihar's podcast quote. And even though Peter semi-retired at the end of the game, he will be making a return in Marvel Spider-Man 3. We also are going to be getting the return of Miles Morales, of course, but also a brand new hero in the form of Silk. Cindy Moon was teased in the end credits of Marvel Spider-Man 2, and she will be making her way as the third Spider-Person in Marvel Spider-Man 3. Now, I think they will handle Cindy Moon's origin story the same way they did Miles. Hopefully, if there's DLC to Marvel Spider-Man 2, we can get more of Cindy Moon, and then hopefully in a sequel Miles game, we can see Miles act as the kind of big brother to Cindy Moon and teach her how to use her newly found spider powers. Unless she's already got the spider powers and she's already a veteran at being Silk. But then all of that will lead into Marvel Spider-Man 3, where we will have most likely 3 playable spider characters, which I'm very, very excited for. Now, also after doing the Spider-Bot quest, we know that there's a reference to Across the Spider-Verse with Delilah, and she tells Peter or Miles, if Miguel comes looking, say finders keepers. But I don't think Miguel will show up in the next Spider-Man game, definitely not as a playable character. But what I think we could be getting is another Across the Spider-Verse reference, or most likely in this case a cameo from Miguel O'Hara. And I think this cameo could be the actual Across the Spider-Verse version of Miguel O'Hara, which will then hopefully unlock his suit for the game. And going off Spider-Man 1 and 2, we're definitely going to be seeing some more MJ missions in this game. And I gotta be honest, I really enjoyed MJ's missions in Spider-Man 2. I think they made a faster pace, the gun was a nice addition, and I think they should give her more in the next game. And I know that she only had the symbiote for a very little amount of time, but I don't think any remnants will be within Mary Jane. However, I think a character like Carnage could re-bring that out of her. And I think a step up from the gun gameplay would actually be giving MJ those scream abilities, those symbiotic powers. I think that will be fun to play as, but I don't know how it would go in the story, of course, especially not at this point. And although he's going to be the main villain of Spider-Man 3, I really want to play as Green Goblin as well. I want to be flying around the city on that glider, throwing pumpkin-shaped bombs. I think the Green Goblin will be another fun playable character for the next game, even if it is for just 1 or 2 missions, similar to how they did Venom with Spider-Man 2. I also think that Spider-Man 3 is the perfect time to introduce those New York City heroes. I think we do need to see at least one Avenger being Captain America, and we also need to see Doctor Strange, Daredevil all make their way into Marvel Spider-Man 3, as this is being compared to as the end game Infinity War of this saga. And I'm not saying they should show up in the final battle or anything like that. I'm merely suggesting that they should show up at least in a side quest, as a small cameo role, something along those lines, just to see them. Because it's been 3 games now, we've been swinging around Avengers Tower, swinging past Doctor Strange's place, running around the rooftops of Hell's Kitchen, and we haven't even seen these heroes show up yet. So I think Marvel Spider-Man 3 is the perfect time to introduce these villains and show us the Insomniac versions of these heroes. So what can we expect from Insomniac next? Well, they are working on a new game plus mode for Marvel Spider-Man 2, and the rumors are that 2024 could be the year of the release of Marvel's Wolverine, although I could think if we don't get a trailer or gameplay trailer this year, we could see that release in 2025. We also know Insomniac may be working on a 3rd game, and that 3rd game could be a Venom spin-off. But we'll go more in depth with the Venom spin-off in a separate video, so subscribe and stay tuned for that. We can also assume that we're going to be getting Miles Morales Part 2, although this time around I could see them making that into a DLC for Marvel Spider-Man 2. However, I would like a separate game for Miles Morales, and I think that that game could also introduce the playability of Silk. Or maybe we could even get a Silk game instead of a Miles Morales game, although I think it would be smarter to kind of leave her playability for Marvel Spider-Man 3, because her alone is going to be a massive new feature for the game. But right now, I think we can assume that Insomniac does have a massive plan for Spider-Man 3, and it took 5 years for the release between Marvel Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, and in that time we got Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart and also Spider-Man Miles Morales game. So hopefully we only have to wait another 5 years for Spider-Man 3, but in that time we get a Venom spin-off and a Miles Morales Part 2 and probably another Ratchet game too. Oh yeah, and we're also going to be getting the Wolverine game in that time too. So the future looks very, very bright for the Insomniac Spider-Man Marvel series, and we're going to to have more updates on this channel. So stick around for that Venom video. We're going to be talking about the Wolverine game soon, and also some updates for Marvel Spider-Man 2, including the new game plus, DLC, and all that kind of stuff too. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Peace out, God bless, and I'll see you in one of my next videos. Take care, guys.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind.